What do Jacinda Ardern, Ryan Gosling, Pope John Paul II, Adolf Hitler, and worst of all, Roseanne Barr have in common?
What does Jacinda Ardern have against mushrooms?
Who is nearly the Prime Minister of New Zealand instead of Jacinda Ardern?
And how was Jacinda's rise to power prophesied by a yeasty snack? Impossible to say the phrase yeasty snack with a straight face.
All right, welcome back to Everything You Didn't Need to Know About Today. We are saluting the Prime Minister of our country, the Jacinda Ardern. We are talking facts about her, and we will each be pitching our favourite facts, and at the end of the episode, we will choose whose fact has been our favourite of the day. So, Jacinda Ardern, she's the Prime Minister of New Zealand. There are 4 Jacindas on Wikipedia, and one of them is fictional.
While I was researching this week, I kept getting really hungry because also I've been watching a lot of Bake Off lately, and I just kept getting confused about Jaconde sponges. Can
you name another famous Jacinda?
There's an actress and an Australian sports person who I think passed away now. And then the other one is a character on the TV show Once Upon a Time. It's the Cinderella character, Jacinda, and the character's name is Ella.
Oh, okay.
Is the reason it's so rare is it's actually a name like Ja Rule, like it's just a rapper name. Her name's really similar. But
yeah, that's right. It's her DJ name.
Yeah, LL Cool Jacinda. Ladies love Cool Jacinda.
Oh man, what a fact.
I found out a terrible one of those recently, which is there's this dreadful program called Selling Sunset, which is like a reality TV show. And one of the characters is called, well, one of the human real people on it is called Chriselle. And it's because she was born in a Shell station and the person who helped her mum give birth was called Chris. So she's Chriselle.
Oh my God.
There used to be a whole lesson in family law where you'd go through like cases and just look at twins called Benson and Hedges or Harley and Davidson.
So of course, Jacinda Ardern is part of the Labour Party here in New Zealand. She's the leader of the Labour Party. I found out
part of it, yeah.
Throughout the history of the Labour Party, 24% of their leaders have been called David.
There was the period of time where they had more Davids than women in their front bench, which everyone thought was great.
That was just before Jacinda came to power, wasn't it?
That's right.
Yeah. Not a great day, not a great era for the Labour Party by all accounts.
They had a run of Cunliffe, Parker, and Shearer, and then David Longy was the 4.
My favorite thing about Jacinda Ardern is that like everyone was like, oh, she's going to be the next leader. But by my understanding, and I kind of know people who know Jacinda, she never wanted to be leader. She was like, no, I don't. I want to keep my soul intact. Like I want to live. And they're like, no, you have to do it because the entire party will self-destruct if you do not do this. And then it didn't. And it turns out that they were all correct.
Tom, I want to know who was going to be the leader. You said that...
No, I operate under the idea of spousal determination. This is, do you know the story about Michelle Obama? So they go back to their hometown and they go to this diner with her and Barack. And one of her old flames owns the diner. And Barack leads over to her and says, look at that, honey. You could have married a guy who owns a diner. She goes, no, I still would have married the guy who was president of the United States. So, that's my thing. So Clark Gayford, obviously, soon to be husband of Jacinda Ardern, and all around lovely fisherman, they got together because he was writing letters to his MPs about the GCSB bill. Sent a letter to Nikki Kaye, Jacinda Ardern's famous rival for the Auckland Central seat, and the one who kept beating her all the time. And he sent a letter to her, didn't get anything back. Sent a letter to Jacinda Ardern. She replied, they met out for coffee, hit it off. Next thing you know, she's Prime Minister of New Zealand. So if my theory is that if Nikki Kaye had responded and Clark Gayford and her had hit it off, then she would have been Prime Minister of New Zealand.
Amazing.
I think without the omega-3 that Clark Gayford's fishing would have brought, I don't know if anyone has the strength to go up against Winston Peters and not be crushed.
He has an entire show about moving houses in improbable positions. If that doesn't describe Labour under New Zealand first, I don't know what else.
Yep.
Oh, that's funny.
But you mentioned the rivalry with Nikki Kaye. I went looking for early interviews with Jacinda to try and find out what the vibe was because she was elected to Parliament in 2008, the same year that she assumed the presidency of the International Student Socialists Committee, which is, for someone who was also at that time just finished working in Tony Blair's Labour government, it's quite a broad political remit.
Yeah, so she worked for Helen Clark, for Phil Goff, who's the mayor of Auckland, New Zealand's biggest city, and Tony Blair. And then when she pops up and it's like, yeah, I guess I'm going to be the leader now, we're like, yeah, you kind of had the experience for it. Throughout history, she was always mates with Grant Robertson. And the idea was always that Grant was going to be the prime minister and she was going to be his deputy. But then, awfully, they kind of said, oh, Grant's gay. And they were like, oh, we don't think the public's ready for a gay man to be the leader of the party, which is ridiculous. And then, well, we got Jacinda, who's great as well, but Grant Robertson's great as well. I've done an improv show with him.
But if Clark had written to Grant, who knows? Maybe the New Zealand public would have turned around.
Yeah, true.
It would be so cute.
Yeah.
Oh, where I used to study when we were at uni in Dunedin, on the desk, scratched into it was written, Clark Gayford has had sex with over 400 women.
But we haven't had 400 women prime ministers, so that might sink Tom's theory.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, true.
I just wanted to go back though. Didn't Jacinda Ardern also famously work in a fish and chip shop when she was growing up?
Yeah.
And
She was
now
15.
she's marrying Mr. Fish, so maybe she's going for the fish empire.
My favorite thing about Jacinda Ardern is that like the power gap in New Zealand is so small between like just me, some dickhead on a podcast, and the prime minister. Like I know a guy who could give me her number. Like I could send her a text, be like, "What up, Jay?" But like there's like TikToks and things like watching like, oh, there's the famous one of like there's the security guys. Who are they there for? It's Jacinda. It's Auntie Jacinda.
Yeah. I've met Jacinda. I did warm up for the leaders debate between her and Judith Collins. Yeah, I looked after the audience and made sure they were going to make noise and stuff. As a joke before it, I said, hey guys, I'm an undecided voter, so whoever's the best audience member tonight, I'll let you choose who I vote for. And Jacinda said, is that open to me as well? And I said, yeah, sure, mate. And she wasn't the best audience member. The best audience member was a guy who was on his phone. I went and sat down next to him and I said, oh my God, this guy's on Tinder. Everyone, this guy's on Tinder right now. And he laughed. And then I later found out that man was the head of Discovery, which had just bought the network that I worked on. And luckily, he has a sense of humor. Otherwise, I would not be working anymore.
If he really was on Tinder, is that why Jacinda just had to make the announcement about Tinder dating being back open for Auckland and up to 25 people at a time
25.
can congregate for adult-themed time?
25 seems like too much for an orgy. I don't remember the names of most of my co-workers.
I doubt that your orgy is really based around your work callings. That just doesn't seem
You
right.
don't know my work.
You work with children.
No, I don't.
And animals.
None of my co-workers. No, I'm minions.
I've met Jacinda, but I've also kind of met New Zealand's 30th Prime Minister, Bill Rowling, because I sang at his funeral. So I kind of met him.
No.
You didn't have great chats.
Did you
Sam
sing
goes,
If You Don't Know Me by Now? Or?
No, Sam goes, hey, I'm an undecided voter.
So I found out that Norman Kirk was the Prime Minister, but he died in office, and he was replaced by a guy called Hugh Watt for 7 days.
I just love the idea that someone came in and was like, oh my God, Kirk's passed away. Oh, we've got to replace him. Who's next in line? Hugh Watt. Hugh What? It's just, it's a Monty Python sketch. It's ridiculous.
It's a who's on first.
Yeah.
If he was around today, do you think he'd use You See Me Rolling, They Hating as
Speaking of that, the day that Jacinda Ardern was elected Prime Minister for the first time, National got sued by Eminem for stealing the music for Lose Yourself. That was the same day, David.
What I love about that is that they're getting sued on the same day that they're sued by a DJ, the same time they got beaten by a DJ.
Oh yeah.
That's great.
Although people like to talk up Jacinda's career as a DJ, it sounds like she did one set at Real Groovy and then she was also at Laneways.
Yeah.
But she was already an MP when she did the DJ set at Laneways. So it kind of feels like when Paris Hilton gets a gig at Ibiza and you're like,
Jen, have you had a set at Laneways?
no, but I'm extremely musically incompetent.
No, leave her alone.
I've also never been the leader of the Labour Party, Tom. Get off my back.
Well, maybe you should try harder. I'm just
maybe you
saying.
should call yourself David.
I should call myself David. Well, I looked into how Jacinda was covered early in her career because I was really interested in, now it seems like this inevitable rise to fame. So I wanted to see if that was present in these early interviews. And I found what I think may be the worst article covering a political leader. So it kicks off with the line, Jacinda Ardern intends to paint this town red, and as she kicks off her sensible black flats, it's clear she started with her toenails.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yep.
Ooh.
This is written by a human woman, allegedly, and it talks about how she was going up against Nikki Kay in the 2011 election for Auckland Central. It'll be the prettiest battle of the 2011 election. Kay, who turned 30 last month, was recently voted sexiest female politician, with Ardern close behind in third.
Oh,
Important facts.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not quite the earliest interview of Jacinda Ardern, though. I'd like to talk about Jacinda Ardern's oldest enemy, which isn't any MP, actually. It's fungus. So Jacinda Ardern, a great win, a great gain for politics, but a great loss for science. As a 17-year-old, Jacinda Ardern was interviewed on TVNZ talking about her science fair project, which was finding bacteria that could kill fungus, kill mushrooms.
Ooh,
And she isolated
so
it. She won a
cute.
prize.
amazing. I love that she was good at science, so then she went and did a Bachelor of Communications. Yeah, nice.
Governing the country during a pandemic, communications and a working knowledge of virology probably quite helpful.
True,
Actually.
yeah.
But Kenny, I would like to point out, I think I know an earlier foe,
Okay.
which is the inability to wear trousers. So when she was
Okay.
at Morrinsville High School, she got into student politics because she thought it was ridiculous that the girls weren't allowed to wear trousers as part of the school uniform. They had to wear the skirts. And so she got onto the student council so that she could protest women not being, well, girls not being allowed to wear trousers as part of the school uniform.
That sounds so much like Helen Clark got in trouble for the same thing. She said, I want to wear trousers to some overseas thing. I like to sometimes call her Helen Clark Gayford because she's the combination of like the two people. Like Helen Clark was her mentor. Like that's how she got.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
Did she win? Was she able to wear trousers?
she was, yeah. But she went too far because she ended up on the school suspension committee helping decide which of her peers would be kicked out and suspended from school.
Amazing.
But there's a great quote from her maiden speech, which I have absolutely no idea how to interpret, because I was trying to reconcile this whole, like, president of the International Union of Socialist Youth with being the Labour Party MP, with working for Tony Blair, with all of these different things. And in her maiden speech in Parliament, she said, "Some people have asked me whether I am a radical. My answer to that question is very simple. I am from Morrinsville." I have no idea how to interpret it, but I love it because it's one of those beautifully, it's almost like a Zen koan, like it kind of, you can just say it and people are like, oh yeah, no,
yeah,
I'm from
yeah.
Morrinsville too, like
Yeah.
emotionally.
I think
In
she
a
means
way-
in Morrinsville, people still use the word radical.
But they mean it like
Is it cool?
radical.
No,
Yeah.
radical.
or it's like, but in a way, aren't we all from Morrinsville?
Guys, it's date night with Sam Smith. Here we go. So, first of all, Jenny Shipley, the first female Prime Minister of New Zealand. She was born on a date that I can't remember, but it was the same day as a man called Jerry Shirley, very similar names, Jenny Shipley, Jerry Shirley, who was the drummer for a band called Humble Pie. Second fact, the next female Prime Minister of New Zealand, Helen Clark, was born on the same day as the guitarist from Journey. Whoa! Third fact, Jacinda Ardern was born on the very same day as one of my favorite guitarists, Dave Backish from Sum 41. And here's the real zinger. Do you know how old Jacinda is? She's 41. Boom! Mic drop.
We got in too deep.
Thank you. That was Date Night with Sam Smith. Speaking about lots of famous people, I asked before what Jacinda, Ryan Gosling, Pope John Paul II, Christina Aguilera, Paul Walker from the Fast and the Furious movies, Katherine Heigl, Adolf Hitler, and Roseanne Barr have in common. Do you guys have any ideas?
Is it that they didn't quite finish their whole series and had to be replaced with a CGI double?
I'm just going to go with they were born on the same day. What are the-
No, surprisingly, this might freak you out. They have all been baptized into the Mormon church. Half of the people who are alive, like Roseanne and Katherine Heigl and all the people that are living, they are Mormons. Like Jacinda Ardern was a Mormon and has since left. So the Mormon church have this thing where they baptize people posthumously. So like they have baptized Anne Frank, famously a Jew, Adolf Hitler, famously definitely not a
A Jew.
Mormon, And
Odd
so
choice.
all these people have become members of the
Do you
Church of the
think they
Latter-day
did
Saints.
Anne Frank and Hitler on the same day just to piss everyone off?
Can the Jewish faith do this? And because making Hitler a Jew would just be so fucking fantastic.
But I thought he was Jewish. I thought Hitler was Jewish. I thought Hitler's mum was Jewish, or had.
You think of John Key.
Yeah. But like, what do we call, like, hey, you know who we really want to have known as a Mormon?
Yeah.
Hitler.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not quite sure why they chose him. Seems like an odd
I think-
choice, but yeah, the idea is that they kind of forgive people, I
Forgive
guess, no
everyone.
matter who, so that they can get into their version of
Heaven.
I was going to say, isn't it a bit of a point scoring thing as well? Like you're supposed to baptize a certain number of people and then that builds up your heaven cred and then you get into a better heaven.
You get a better planet. There's another evangelical church, and I think it's Seventh-day Adventist, but I'm possibly not correct, where there's only 200,000 spots in heaven. So you have to try and get people into the church with you, but you're positively incentivized not to do a good job because you want those spots for yourself.
That's very funny.
Yeah, if you've
Sorry.
read The Private Memoirs and Confessions of a Justified Sinner by James Hogg, which is a very awesome, trippy, terrifying book, the protagonist is in one of those weird sects where his ascension to heaven is confirmed. So he goes around like murdering loads of people and stuff because he's in heaven. It doesn't matter what he does, but he's also still supposed to be trying to convert people to the religion.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's very strange.
I recommend you repent right now. Why? No reason.
In Mormonism, some Mormons believe that Cain from the Bible is the same as Bigfoot, because there is a passage that describes that they were walking along next to Cain, and he's big and covered in fur and covered in
And
hair.
blurry.
And yeah, and it's walking
So the
casually
mark of
in the
Cain
distance,
is a big foot.
which seems, I'll be honest, quite far-fetched, even
Bit
for
of a stretch,
Mormonism.
isn't it?
Yeah, I feel like if I was Eve and I had two sons and one of them was like a normal looking human and the other one was a Sasquatch, I wouldn't let them play together. I don't
Yeah.
think.
Be like, hey, kill that one.
Can we kill the really funny looking one?
Yeah, Jacinda Ardern got into politics through her auntie, and she recruited Jacinda when she was a teenager to work on Harry Duynhoven's campaign in New Plymouth, which is where I'm from. And he actually hit on my mum, which is always a wonderful thing for politicians to do. She helped. She campaigned for him in New Plymouth, and where I'm going to be living in Taranaki, you can actually see his house, which he bulldozed against iwi wishes. So Harry Duynhoven, lovely guy. If you're there, don't sue.
Oh, he had the most kind of benign administrative scandal I've ever heard of in New Zealand politics, which is he self-reported himself to the Speaker of the House as having potentially broken standing rules because he is entitled to Dutch citizenship through his father and never renounced it, but was stripped of it due to an administrative thing that the Dutch government did, and so went to apply for it again so that he would still have this thing that he'd previously been entitled to. But applying for foreign citizenship as a sitting MP theoretically makes you ineligible to continue. So he reported himself to the Speaker. The Speaker was like, I mean, you're like the MP for New Plymouth. Nobody really cares. And then they ended up passing
Amazing.
retrospectively making it okay.
Jacinda, if you're listening, I have a way of getting anything you want out of Australia. Like, okay,
Yeah.
so you remember a few years ago how there was a big controversy about the Australian vice
Was it
Prime
Barnaby
Minister?
Joyce?
Yeah, Deputy Prime Minister being a New Zealander by birth and therefore ineligible. I reckon we do what the Mormon Church does, and anytime an Australian wants to be the Prime Minister, you go, you're going to have to give us some money, or we're going to turn you into a New
Might
Zealander.
accidentally make it a Kiwi. Oopsie.
Oh no, sorry.
I've got a passport here. Don't make me use it.
Barnaby.
I just did want to point out that when I was reviewing Jacinda Ardern's maiden speech, that was uploaded to YouTube in 2008 when she made it. There was a post on there that someone posted in 2013 that just said, she's going to be Prime Minister. And it was posted in 2013, years before she came anywhere near the upper echelons of the Labour Party. And that post was made by Twiglet.
What?
Classic Twiglet.
The food?
Their profile picture is a packet of Twiglets.
Hey.
Is that because Twiglets are flavored with yeast byproducts like Marmite? yeast is a fungus, and Jacinda Ardern's oldest enemy, according to me.
Twiglets was warning its fungal brethren
Yep.
and saying, guys, we've got to look out. This bitch is on the way up. She's got it in for us. We know this much.
Jacinda famously was a very, very young leader. But I found out that she's not even the youngest at the moment. She's only 8th in the list. We're beaten by like Mali, El Salvador,
Finland.
North Korea, and the leader of
Again.
San Marino is like 27 years old.
Yeah.
But the Finnish Prime Minister just had to apologise for going out clubbing when she had a meeting the next morning.
Oh, wasn't it? She was out clubbing, so she didn't get the text saying she'd been exposed
Yeah.
to COVID.
Which is not something you'd ever worry about with Jacinda, because she's a parent and no parent can go out anymore. But she's also the second prime minister, second woman in office to ever give birth whilst in office. I assume not in her office, in a hospital, but
Oh, she is in labour.
Yeah.
it's such a great. Imagine if she'd been a national. What a waste! What an absolute waste. God, I just cannot imagine being a prime minister and having a baby. Like, it's hard enough not being prime minister and
Yeah.
having a baby.
I love
Imagine
that
Imagine
she-
it's hard enough being a prime minister and having to look after Winston Peters, let alone an actual infant.
God.
Well, he was
Men
in
of tension.
charge while she was on maternity leave. Winston Peters was in charge of our country, and it all turned to shit. I think that's when COVID got in. I think that's when the economy collapsed. Yeah, and then luckily she came back
Yeah,
and
just-
fixed everything up.
I also like when you look her up, because she and Clark aren't married, they don't really know how to list him in like Wikipedia. So he's down as domestic partner, which I like opens up the opportunity that she's got international partners as well. So that,
I kind of wish they called him like consort, like he was like
Yeah.
prime minister
Yeah.
consort.
Yeah,
That would have
that's
been so
great.
good. She's also the only leader to have got a outright majority in our political system, which is a political system that actually kind of makes sense as opposed to so many other political systems.
That's
But yeah,
right.
the only one of MMP to have ever won a landslide.
All right, hey, we
Ah.
better wrap up. Let's quickly just go back around and list our facts. Mine was that Jacinda, much like Adolf Hitler and Roseanne Barr, has been a member of the Mormon Church.
My fact was that Jacinda Ardern was videoed. The first time on video was as a 17-year-old presenting her science fair project, and it was a project that was using bacteria to kill fungus.
My fact was that Jacinda Ardern's partner, Clark Gayford, originally sent a letter to her rival, Nikki Kay, but ended up sending a letter to Jacinda Ardern. They hit it off over coffee, and he's the reason why she's Prime Minister. Not to say that she isn't an incredibly capable person herself, but that fish just don't get you this far enough.
my fact was that Jacinda Ardern's rise to power was prophesied by a popular UK yeast-based wheat snack.
All right, it is time to vote. I want you to point to the person you think had the best fact of the day on 3, and a 1, and a 2, and a 3. Jennifer
Jen.
Jewell, that is 3 votes. Congratulations. You've nailed it with Twiglets. Of course you have.
I'm just really hungry. I'd just like to say a massive thanks to Jacinda Ardern for being the most interesting Prime Minister to research, because you're fun and cool, and please retweet our podcast. That would be awesome. Thanks. I'd also like to say thank you to everyone for listening and watching and engaging with us. You can tweet at us on our Twitter handles, which are on the YouTube video and also in the show notes of our podcast. And we'd love to hear your favourite facts about our wonderful Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern.
Remember to vote, everyone.
Vote!
Oh, see you later, G words.
Bye-bye.
Bye.